Oh, welcome to Thunder Nerds. I'm Sarah Vesloff.
And I'm Brian.
And I'm Frederick Philip Von Weiss. And thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology
that love what they do
and do tech
good.
Pow! We're doing tech in the face. We're doing tech really good today. Thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate it. If you can, we just want to ask you to please subscribe on the YouTubes, on the iTunes and all that. Would really appreciate it. And also, we want to thank our sponsor. We have a sponsor all year. We have Pantheon.io. They provide a platform for Drupal, for WordPress. You can easily automate backing up your stuff. They vet all kind of security deployments for you before you push it up. It's a really cool system. Check it out at Pantheon.io.
And something about lasagna too, right?
Yeah, they also have a free lasagna on Tuesdays. It's veggie. It's really good.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah.
So what are we doing today, guys? What's the topic?
Well, today we don't have a guest today. We're just going to talk about a topic that I found interesting on Syntax FM the other day. I was listening to an episode with Travis Nielsen, and it was all about work-life. Well, part of the thing that they were talking about was work-life balance, and I thought it's such an interesting topic, and I wanted to do more of a deep dive on that because I think they touched on it very briefly, and there's so much to that is unanswered, and maybe we could provide a little bit of insight on how people could get a better balance if that's a real thing.
I think the secret is you work like 100 hours a week and then sleep the
100
rest.
to 200.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much. And you have to have all those side gigs too, right? Gig economy. Make sure you're filling in any. I mean, can never do too much.
Well, the thing that I heard that I found interesting was the point that Travis was bringing up is he was saying that it's about not a balance, and he even has an article about a balance is a BS kind of term. It's about being all in. So from his perspective, and we'll get into all of our perspectives. From his perspective, it was about he comes home and has a set amount of focus time, and it's really about having that focus time, and then from like 8 into 10 or 8 to midnight working on a thing and doing that maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and then that's it. So it's about setting some kind of habit or a ritual. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Brian. You look like you were ready. You were just like, I got something.
It's probably bad, but I just don't, with life and life's little surprises, having a habit like that where every day I come home and I have like this set ritual just doesn't work for me. I mean, because, there's Rachel has cake orders that come in. I'm helped with that. There's like other events that keep popping up, and having like a ritual, it would be nice. I do think that I do have a set pattern every day where I drive home from work and I always listen to a podcast, and that the drive home ends up being that almost habit that's enforced because it's the only way I can get home. And that's like my cool off period, I guess. That's the only thing that I have that's a daily for sure like thing.
So that's like one of your rituals is podcasts in the car. And I do the same thing. I'll either listen to a podcast, which is some kind of, I guess, a set time for learning, or I'll listen to a YouTube show, which is also a set time for learning. Same thing, really.
I will say too that it tends to not be like probably 80% of the time tends to be something completely unrelated to work. Like I listen how stuff works, lore, like various shows that are just kind of like not work related. So my mind like is no longer on that.
Well, that's interesting. So we're talking about from a perspective of commuting. And Sarah, you have a different perspective because you do not have a commute. So do you have a time that you listen to podcasts, or do you listen to something like that?
I got to say, like, first, I completely resonate, Brian, with what you said about like so much stuff comes up, like having that kind of routine is, I think, really difficult. at least for me in my life and all the things that are going on. So I don't really have that. In terms of the all in, I do agree with that. When I'm focused on something, I'm focused on that thing. And I either have in my mind a set goal for that thing, or I have a set amount of time for that thing. It really just kind of depends. So, but like you said, I don't have a commute. Remote work is the best work. I gotta say, no, sorry guys.
Oh, I mean, I've done it before too. So,
But I could never imagine. It would take a lot of money and a really interesting job to ever make me commute again. Because for me, work-life balance is in the flexibility that I have. And it's in the ability to, I stayed up late because I couldn't sleep or whatever. And okay, I don't have any meetings, so I'm going to sleep till 9. I'm not going to get up at 8. And I'm going to shift the rest of my day around and focus in on different things. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've done, regardless of whether you're remote or you're commuting or whatever your actual, structure is, I learned to stop giving all of myself to my job. And that may sound scary to employers everywhere, but I think as employees, we need to be better about that. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. When I'm there, I give it my all. When I'm doing something else, I'm doing that other thing. I'm not worrying about work. I'm not worrying about this thing, whether it got done or not. And I'm not really letting myself get sucked into this kind of 24/7 thing where you're constantly thinking about it or working towards it, which I've done with a lot of jobs in the past.
Well, it can be invasive.
Yeah.
I can't see it, and that's the problem with me. Like I don't really shut off. Like there's times I think I mentioned it a long time ago on the episode on the show too about how I had this coding problem at work, and I came home. Normal evening. I had my dinner and everything, whatever else happened that night. Went to bed. It popped in my head again, and then all night in my sleep, I was like
You're working in your sleep
on the code in my sleep.
I hope you charge for that time.
No, it was not a.
It's like 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's hard to itemize that.
Yeah, I should have just not come into work in this day. I was like, I worked all night, guys.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I can't shut off. There's like if I have anything going on at work, like I have new hires now, and I'm thinking about any problems they're having, and I come home and I can't sleep because I'm thinking of like what can I do to improve make them do their job better and be happy, and like I don't shut off very easily.
Notice he said make them do their job.
Make them.
I was glad you're not my manager.
Well, you know what I
know what you meant.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have that problem, or if it's a problem to some people, I guess it's your own personal perspective. But so sometimes work is it goes into your sleep, it goes into the rest of your day, right? So is that a problem to where like if you work 6 to 10 hours that day, right? You come home, you're with your family, but you still have that problem in your head, and it's taking up not only some of your time, but it's taking your attention away from your family at that moment. I would say that's not a good balance, and maybe that's not a good way to discipline your time.
Yeah, I mean that's where I kind of get like I don't know. Talking about work-life balance is joke. I think is very true because it's not a work-life balance. It's life. Like work is part of life. Like and it shouldn't be. And I honestly believe that work shouldn't really be work in the if you can avoid it, it should be just something you're doing that you enjoy that makes you money. It shouldn't necessarily be like a trial and tribulations. I realize it's not always possible. You need to make money, and sometimes you have to do something that you go to that maybe you don't like. But I mean, ultimately, these people take up like 8 hours or more of your day every day. You spend most of your time there. You should be happy and it should almost be like a second family.
Well
go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say, I think like I hear what you're saying, and like way long time ago when I was going to college, I worked at Walmart, and I love that job. I know it sounds crazy, but I love that job. We talked about this before. But that's a job. It's not a career. So it's a job where I go in and I'm there from this time to this time. And the only thing that I would be thinking about in terms of that job when I wasn't, is if I had some kind of angst with my coworkers or some kind of bullshit that I didn't agree with or whatever.
Yeah.
It's different when you have a career. I think where the balance in
You
a
did it.
quotation starts to like, well, where you can get into dangerous territory is when it's about your career and it's about something you love and something
Yeah.
you're passionate about and you enjoy. You're emotionally invested in it.
Yeah.
And then it's not that you're sitting and you're thinking of like, wow, what are these awesome things I could do? You're thinking, this is so frustrating. I'm trying to do XYZ and I'm being blocked
Yeah.
because of this, or I did all of that work and it never got pushed to production, or all of these other things. That's when it starts to become dangerous, I think, and become a burden and become a negative thing versus kind of just juggling the different things in your life.
Especially if you're somebody that is like you said, if you're in a different kind of industry than you want to be, if you have that full-time job and you're like, you know what, I really want to be a developer. Where do I find the time? Do I quit my job and just do something like jump into some kind of immersive education and see what happens? Or is it about, trying to find those maybe 2 hours in the morning between 6 and 8 o'clock, or a few hours every night between 8 and 10 to build up your education? And how often can you do that realistically with some people's schedule, depending on if they have a family, depending on if they have the energy, if they have the health, the age, there's a lot of different factors that go into this.
Yeah.
So what was some other things that they mentioned in the show? Because I haven't listened to that episode. Was there anything else that was major that called out to you?
Yeah, it was interesting how he was talking about that he definitely set this major point of having a ritual, and that people have rituals where they go home, eat dinner with their family, and then they watch Netflix for 2 hours to loosen up. And they were citing that isn't necessary. You don't need those 2 hours to loosen up or unwind from your day. You could come home and improve your skills for those 2 hours. It's that and I'm quoting them, this is not my opinion, it's that you're set within this ritual, this habit of that's what you need to do. So your mind is affixed to saying, that's what I need to do, and I don't have any other time because I came home and I watched Stranger Things for 2 hours.
I think I find that kind of funny because I don't know, not to diminish.
How does that encourage work-life balance? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I found so interesting is that it's going back to that, just like you said, Sarah. It's that, and what you found funny, Brian, is that there's no work-life balance. If you're working all the time, even if it's where you're doing something to better your skills constantly, if you come home and you worked all day in React, you're like, oh, you know what, I want to learn Vue, and you spend 3 hours when you get home stuck on the screen, you're stuck on the screen. You need to get away from a screen every once in a while, or else you're going to get burnt out.
I mean, watching Netflix is screen too, but I mean, the thing with
sorry, add a screen, a computer screen where you're inputting.
I know what you meant. But like the thing is, yes, I agree that if there's something you're interested in, I mean, just like anything you're interested, if you're interested in like whittling or woodworking or
whittling, Brian's secret passion that we're just finding out about.
Yeah.
We'll show Brian's chair later on in the episode.
It's like, yes, totally learn how to do that and learn Vue or whatever. But like to diminish or say, hey, someone coming home and spending this 2 hours, like I come home, we have dinner. I guess in a way it is a ritual, but it's not like an every night thing. Just like I said earlier, sometimes it's later that we manage to like sit down and have dinner together. Sometimes it's earlier, but we like sit down.
That's your time.
Yeah, that's our time. Rachel's usually baking all day. I'll rub her feet and we'll like cut on the couch and watch a movie. And that's important time that matters because you're spending time with someone that you love and you care about, and it's like you shouldn't diminish that and be like you should be learning something.
Exactly. I think it's really difficult to judge, and I think that's what's happening. What I got from that episode is like not to like point fingers, but like part of that is like that's judging people. That's everybody is different. Everybody needs to do something. If you need to come home every night and watch Dancing with the Stars for 3 hours to unwind from your day and have gin and tonic, then that's what you need to do, because you do have a full-time job probably that you need some time to get away. And if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do.
This just, I mean, I'm sorry, but this whole thing, like, just first off, tangent, I have to. So, tangent. Before this, I was working on some the bootstrap stuff that I'm doing for this company. And I listened to just like the world's worst true crime, like people investigates and shit in the background. I don't know. It's my guilty pleasure. So I'm listening to it. And so Brian said that, come home, have dinner, rub his wife's feet, which is so nice of you. But I just watched. I just watched.
There's a button, Sarah.
No. I just watched this episode where one of the suspects, his alibi was that he was rubbing his diabetic mother's feet, and they were able to exonerate him based on that. So you might want to keep track of when, just in case. You never know. I mean, in case you're a suspect in a murder or something. I told you it was a tangent. Well, anyway.
That was a good tangent.
I almost busted out laughing when you said that. Like, what were the chances? It's like such a coincidence. But anyway.
What do you think about quality time versus?
She had
you had to think. Go ahead.
Yeah. I did. God, you're so rude. So let me finish. No, but this, I think, I see, and I'm in this industry, so I have obviously much more knowledge of how this industry works, the good and the bad. So I'm sure this happens in other industries, but particularly in tech, it's like there's this obsession with you have to constantly be learning. You have to, everything changes. Like when you come out of school, you're already 3 years behind, and you have to go to meetups all the time and conferences, and then you got to spend your lunch hour listening to tech podcasts and then code all night. And that's just bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. And there's this idea from everybody that you're not really an engineer, and this happens in design as well, or a designer, unless you're doing these things, unless you're learning all these new things and you're speaking at conferences and you're writing blog posts and some people, for them, this is a job. It's a career, but it's a job. They enjoy what they do. They want to come in and do it and learn as they need to, but check out at the end of the day and have an actual life. And so all of this 10 times engineer talk and all of this crap is just
that about? I completely missed that whole thing.
I've never met a 10 times engineer, but I've met a lot of 10 times assholes. I will say that.
But what is the 10 times thing? I kept seeing it and I was just ignoring it because I thought it was typical, Let's do another whole podcast on that. Let's not digress from here. But yeah, so I didn't listen to this thing that you're referring to, Fred. So I don't want to make too many judgments because I'm sure there was probably some other stuff that balanced some of that out. But I'm always so wary of that in this industry. And then, what I love on Twitter a lot is people talking about the stuff that they do that isn't tech. And they say it's okay not to. Those people that are always out there saying hey, it's okay if you're not constantly doing tech and learning all the time. Everybody take a chill pill and take a break every now and then.
Yeah, that one of the episodes we did a while back with Alyssa Nichol, she really spoke about burnout and how you need to diversify your passions, and how one of the things that she does is she scuba dives, right? And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. So she scuba dives on her off time, but she noticed when she first was coming up in the industry that when she would approach people and she would be really excited about certain projects, and she would come across certain developers that were like, man, nothing's ever going to get done, blah, 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 blah. And she didn't understand why these people had these burnout issues and it was because of this obsession with, if that's the right word, with being at the bottom of the ocean with our career, where we keep having this pressure to every day you need to learn. Like you said, you're always going to be behind no matter what you learn, but you have to find the things that you're interested in and the things that align with what you can do, and just go with there. You don't have to know everything. I mean, you don't have to know C to be a JavaScript developer. You could just focus on one thing and do it well, and you're okay, and have a life outside of the computer.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all goes back to like measuring and the imposter syndrome and all that, where people feel like they do have to do this stuff. But it's interesting you point out, like, do the one thing well. If you look at people in the industry that are really successful, like Jen Simmons, it's like she is focused and
Great example.
On CSS, and that's like her. I mean, heck, Chris Coyer too, who's been on the show like what 8 times now. he CSS as well, and they are extremely successful. Like, it just shows, like, focus on one thing, do it well, don't worry about having to know everything.
Yeah, you don't have to set this time every day to just constantly throw these things in your face and just keep eating the code. Just it's important to take a break. And I think one of the things I heard in this episode was about, and I'd love to get your opinion on these things, is they cite that you could spend quality time and not so much the quantity, right? So he was citing that it's not about you spent those 4 hours watching a show or hanging out, but if you spent a half hour really having like a focused, like, say you're at dinner and you're really talking about your day and you're exchanging what you did, and you say, like, you know what, between at 8 o'clock, we're really going to sit down and we're really going to have some interaction for a half hour, and having that focused time.
So, like, is this, wait 1 second.
Yeah.
Did they actually say, like, specifying that this is the time? Like, actually,
well, he said, like, on certain days they would spend, like, you know, when he came home, he would spend like X amount of time with this
plan.
And then, sorry, yeah, it was a plan. But to me, and I think I'm getting the same reaction from you guys, is that you can't plan life like that, and having like a quantity versus quality thing is kind of like cold.
Well,
I don't know.
I think it's just not us. Like, it sounds like this is a person that this works for, and that this is, that's, like, there have been times when I've been passionate about something and I put all my energy and time into it, and because it's almost like an obsession. I'm so interested in it, and like, it's just got my attention. And there have been other times that I've put all my anxiety into something, right? And I think that's what part of what we're talking about here too, is like, some people, this constant like learning and working on projects late at night and getting up early and not sleeping is an anxiety issue, right? You're worried about not being good enough, or people thinking that you're not doing your job, or maybe you lose your job. That's a whole different thing. So I don't want to say anybody, hey, if that's their life and they want to like schedule every minute of the day and schedule time with loved ones, great.
I mean, I can see definitely that there are people out there that's just how they have to be. I mean, your mind works that way, and that's But I mean,
it's cold for me, but it might work for someone else.
Yeah, but anyone who listens to that, make sure that don't just decide, hey, I'm going to do that. Like, figure out if that works for you. It would be what I would say. But it would not work for me. Just life's too chaotic for me to. I would be in a constant anxiety, because I'd be like, wait, it's Sunday at 2 p.m. I'm supposed to be having lunch with Rachel. This is when we scheduled it. It's not happening because something else is going on, and I'd be going crazy. So
what about when you say if you had a project and it came on and you said, you know what? Within this month, I'm going to have this project. So I'm going to really have to balance my time carefully. There could be scenarios where you can employ that kind of idea
Absolutely.
there. Yeah. But I wouldn't even label that. That's just different, because that's something you have to get done. It's like.
Exactly.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, my initial reaction was, wow, that sounds cold. But the more I think about it, the more I could see the point of view of, it's not cold at all. It's ensuring that I'm making space for myself and for the people I love to have time.
Yeah, with intent. Yeah.
Yeah, with intent. Exactly. Yeah. So like, it feels cold to us, but I mean, don't ever interview my husband about my work habits, because I'd be in big trouble. Like, I mean, we just had a conversation in the car, and I think he was calling me a jerk. I think that like is the TLDR of the conversation, but essentially he was just saying that he's like, well, when you do something, you're focused. He's like, you can't, like, I can't even talk to you. She's like, you just like bite my head off. But it's true. It's absolutely true. Like, if I'm focused on something.
I can't picture you being like that.
I know. Well, and you come in the room, I mean, I'll just be like, I won't even look at you. I just like go
Yeah.
away. You know?
I mean, I'm somewhat the same way too. Like when I'm working on something, like I'm coding something on my computer in the evening.
Well, because you've got it all
Yeah.
like in your head, in the air, juggling
Mhm.
it, and like as soon as someone comes in, they all fall, and you're like, God
Does,
damn it! It's
And you got to put
10
those
more
pieces
minutes.
back together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he ask you what you're doing? Rachel does that. She's like,
No.
"What are you doing?" I'm like,
No.
I'm like coding stuff, and she's like, "Oh, what is it?" I'm like,
Oh, I would kill her. No. She would die. No, he comes in, looks, reads my face, and leaves. Like literally. He's like, I'm out.
Well, I mean, I understand that she's just interested in what I'm doing, and
She sounds lovely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was like, I love you, but I'm trying to focus on this because I can't. It's because it's like you're just mentioning, like it's code. You're trying to figure out. You got all these numbers and
can't get distracted
all around you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have to. We go into concepts about what these things represent, and like just that alone is you're getting way off topic.
Yeah. Well, what do you both think of like the balance? Like they say in our notes, we have work-life balance as a joke, but like, is it a joke? Like, is it something that can't like?
I think it's very personal, and it really depends on the day to day. Right, you need to do things, and you're going to get them done. It's like that. How do you eat a whale one bite at a time? You'll get to that place. You'll accomplish a task, but you can't. You have to be okay with sometimes letting things go. You might have the intent of, when I get home, I'm going to work on this for an hour, and I'm going to get this done. But when that point comes, and it's 9 o'clock, and you go to type, and it's like, well, you know what? Life happens, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like anything. Like you can't possibly be happy all the time. Like nobody's happy all the time. You go through periods where you're, except Brian, of course. You go through periods where you're, anxious, sad, depressed, up, down. I mean, and it's the same with work. There are times when work is crazy and you have to put a lot of your focus and energy there. And we're all lucky enough to be in an industry that we love, and so that's not as painful as if you were doing something you hated. And then I think after that, sometimes then you have to take a step back and figure out how to, regroup for a little bit. So I think it's just, it's not like this constant state that you can maintain. I think it's more recognizing when you've gone off track and when you're in danger, and how do you bring that back around?
Yeah, sometimes you have to bring your homework with you, and then sometimes you don't.
You have to bring your homework with you. Your work home with you? That was great, by the way.
Homework with me.
I'm like, homework? Are we in school?
Bring that home to work with me.
Yeah, well, I do that every day because I work at home. So.
Yeah, you don't have the same thing. But I'm just saying, like, sometimes you have projects and they need to get done tomorrow. Yeah, so you have to bring them home, and you have to bring your work home with you. And it happens. And you have to be okay with that.
Have you done much non-remote work?
Oh yeah.
So I've done a lot of remote work as well. Would you agree it's hard to, when you're doing remote, to like stop and define like the separation between what is work and what is like non-work?
No, not for me.
No.
No. I think where I see a lot of people get into trouble with remote work is especially when they're first doing it, they go into it with this mindset of worry, or this worry that other people will think they're not working, right? When you're not visible, when people can't see you in the office, you kind of start to get this kind of weird, anxious fear of like, I better, comment here, or I better be in Slack because people might not think I'm working,
Yeah, I always did the good morning in the chat.
Yeah, and I don't like that. It's funny. Like I noticed when I came to CloudBees that people come in and say good morning, and maybe it's just because they're being nice, but it immediately was like
it's not good morning, guys.
Like I feel like, are you doing this because like it just worried me that perhaps people were doing it because they just wanted people to know that they were working, and like that's not what we're async. There are lots of times that I'm working for 3 or 4 hours straight, and then I'm not working for 2 hours, and then I come back and I work for an hour, and then I'm not working. So I think in the beginning, yes, you kind of had that idea, but as soon as it clicked for me that I'm being paid to do a job, not for accumulating a certain number of hours per day, and that
But
every
not all
day
places are like that.
no, I'm lucky that they are. And I mean, if I was to count up all the time that I give, it probably ends up being more than 40 hours a week. I'm absolutely sure. But I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about and I'm a goal oriented person. So every day I start with a to-do list of like, these are the things I want to accomplish today. And so my goal throughout the day is to do that in any way, fashion that I need to. And there's meetings and there's things I need to do. And often I'll get up and clean my house. Like I'll be like, okay, I got to get up and vacuum because I've been sitting on my ass for 3 hours and like, this is not good.
Yeah.
So in that way, I kind of just juggle things. But no, I haven't had a hard time. I think lately, especially, I've been really good about saying, I get up at 8 o'clock, a little bit of a routine. I get up at 8, I've got meetings, I've got things to do. Sometimes I take a lunch, sometimes I'm too busy and I don't. Not good, but sometimes I do that. But then at a certain time of day, like I'm done. And I am done. Like I'm not on Slack, my computer is closed, and I am not worried about that. But I have something else to focus on, right?
See, the good morning thing for me too. I always did log into chat. The reason I did that, it was kind of like the moment of like, okay, I'm on. And then I'd actually tell people when I was leaving. Like I would
just to communicate, hey, if you need me, here I am.
Yeah, and I was the same way when I was 100% remote. Well, mostly 100% remote. I would get up and I'd shower every day too. Though every morning I'd get up and shower, and I'd make an intentional.
Okay, thank you for that info.
I'm going into the office. Well, no, like I had it was like I'm going into work is what.
I see. Gotcha. Like you got into the process of getting to work.
Yeah. Because if I didn't do that, then I'd just be slower to get going, and it would be my day would end up being longer. My work day would be longer because I'd be I wouldn't get my mind wouldn't go into full gear as soon as it would if I didn't have that start. Yeah.
I think there's definitely kinds of people that can manage themselves and can work remote, and there's some people that can't, and there's other people that want to be at an office. One of my buddies, he worked remote for 10 years. And he found a job that requires him now to go to an office, and he is super excited because he wanted a job where he wanted to go to an office. He said, "You know what? I'm lonely. I want to have that interaction of being able to collaborate with a team, hands on, like face to face." And that's what he did, and he's all about it. So
talk to people like face to face.
Yeah, I know. It's the weirdest thing to actually see them in the same room. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, I respect that. That's great. But I mean, I feel like I interact more being remote than I did when I was in an office. When I was in an office, I was constantly trying to put my headphones on and get rid of distractions because I was focused on. Whereas, in remote work, I'm seeking out those interactions. You have to be much more mindful of actually making those connections and talking to people.
People work so differently. Like if I'm in the office and people are starting to chat about something, I'm like, wait, what's that? Like then I'm a chatterbox and I'm totally distracted. Same. But if I'm working at home, I'm just focused and I'm getting so much more done.
So much more done. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with me. Like especially if it's like code related, if it's like project planner, things like that, in a way I kind of like being there. But if it's like I'm sitting down in front of the computer and trying to do work, not that project planning isn't work, but coding, then I'll get more done if I'm at home because I don't have those distractions of someone giggles about something. I'm like, oh, what's going on over here? And someone oh, there are brownies. Brownies, the breaker?
I'm up. Let's go.
Yeah.
Team brownie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst. That's
brownies?
The worst.
I like brownies.
No,
what do we?
Oh,
yeah. What do we think about? Because you brought this point up, Sarah, about at a certain time of night, you're done. You don't have Slack on. What do you think about companies that don't outright, say they require you to be available, but there's a certain kind of level of that they imply that, when we send you an email, when we send you a Slack message, when I Google chat you, I need you to be available. I need you to be able to answer that. What do we think about that kind of culture? Is that healthy? Is that okay?
I think that's awful. I mean, specifically the last two places I've worked for make it very clear that Slack is considered async communication. You are not required or expected to answer right away. Yeah. We all work in different time zones. I may send somebody a message at their 1 o'clock in the morning. Of course, I don't expect them to answer, but I don't want to lose the thought that I have that I need this answer to. So I just send it then. I'd run screaming. Like that would be a no.
Yeah.
What
It's
about certain? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, one thing that I don't like, and I had a thought on the Slack thing. Never mind, I can't remember. But email, I find really interesting. Where I'm at now, and Josiah, if you're listening, it's okay. I'm fine with it. A lot of companies think email is almost like chat, where they expect like a response like quick, like
Yeah,
to
and it's
me.
not.
Yeah, to me, email has always notoriously been like email comes in. I usually always set like two times throughout the day where I would check my email, because if it's something that's really important and we have a chat that is like instantaneous, I expect it to kind of come through there. And if it's something that requires like a thread of tracking, then it's in email, and it's not urgent because it's an email. But every company's different. Every company has their own policies and things and how they work. But I always find that interesting that email is considered something that is so urgent that you need to respond to, when
Yeah, it's tasks.
Yeah.
What do you think about certain roles, like certain roles within a company
What do
that
you mean?
require you to be? I'll explain to you. Like if you're I don't know, a director, you're this, you're that. Is there more or less kind of an expectation that you need to, your opinion is needed so urgently that you have to be available at all hours of the night?
I mean, personally, my opinion is if you're at a certain level, you're making a certain amount of money, and you're willing to accept the level of responsibility, then I think that maybe there is certain cases where, it's like, for instance, even if it's not a high level, if a website goes down, there's people that are probably going to be on call that have to come in and fix whatever's going on, or like remotely, whatever. So, I mean, yeah, there's always going to be cases like even the lowly designers and that are like way dead junior people way on the bottom. And there's always cases that where there may be a time that you just have to work. And as long as it's not something that's like constant, then it's acceptable. But I think if you're constantly not having that shut off period, then, I mean, if you're not okay with it, you really should consider moving on. I personally think, because
you might have those shakes of like every 10 minutes, I need to look at my phone and make sure I didn't get like an email about, or a Slack message like, hey, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you shouldn't be stressing like that. It's not fair to anyone. And if there is times where someone has to be available, it should be organized and structured, and be like, okay, today Frederick is, tomorrow Sarah is going to be,
Yeah, well, I mean, that more falls into like support roles, which
yeah.
makes a good sense, right? You have a shift that you cover, but I think to me, it's important that like if it's going to be flexible. So what I want is I want an environment where an emergency happens in my life or something comes up, my work is flexible, and I would expect to give the same. So an emergency, something really important to my role within the company comes up, and they reach out and need me, and maybe it's an odd time, and if I can, I jump in.
Yeah.
And to me, it's that give and take that's important. What I have worked in places that expected me to jump when they said jump, but if I needed, to go to a doctor's appointment, I had to take personal time. I had to it's like, well, what about all this other time that I've worked and given you, and I just need a half an hour or something.
Yeah. And in previous jobs, I felt that I actually did feel the whole, like, if I got an email from a specific person, or a chat message from a specific person, or a message, I felt like anxious that I had to respond. And where I'm at now, I actually, when I'm off work, I feel like it's fine. I'm off work. They're actually very particular about the whole work-life balance. They even have mentioned that repeatedly, that when you're done, you're done. They also don't like people going home and like working after work. I don't like that either. I think that's bad. Like, I think your work day's done. Then, you're done.
You have that time where you that's what you do. That's where you put your focus, and you don't have to have that stress or what have you bleed into the rest of your life.
Yeah. I'll reach out to coworkers on Slack, like who I know are on vacation, and they're all over Slack, or they're sending emails, and I'm like,
What
hey,
the heck are you doing?
like, listen, like, you need to, like, when I was a manager at GitLab, I think I called one of my designers out because they were on Slack. I was like, hey, thanks for the input, but you're on vacation, so I don't want to see you saying anything else. Like, you need to go. Um, Not because I wasn't angry about it, but I wanted them to absolutely feel that it's okay to disconnect. Like, nothing is going to happen that is so important that it should interrupt that time. Like, we can handle it. We're a team, and you've got other people here that can take care of it and then catch you back up later. And I've even reached out to managers on other teams and said, like, hey, you've got this one person that's working 24/7. That's a really bad example. Like, while I applaud people that are passionate and want to contribute, and you know I think it really has to be called out that's not expected of everyone else, because then you fall into this situation where the only way to be considered doing a good job, just a good job, is that you're working yourself into the ground. I've worked in places like that.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so
One thing I like about where I'm at now too is we had another design manager went away on vacation, and she was messaging the channel, and she's like, "I'm delete. Just everyone know, it's deleted." She deleted the chat app, disconnected her email, and she's just
yeah.
letting everyone know not available. And yeah, that's how it should be. And one important point I'd like to make people too is that you, in some ways, depending upon where you work, it's all dependent on where you work, you can set like the precedent of what happens. Like if you are the person that responds to those messages after hours, or you are the person that responds to every email even when you're on lunch, and you allow that to happen, you're saying it's okay, and those people are going to keep doing that and then keep expecting that. And if you don't draw the line, so to speak, then you're going to always have to do that.
You mind if I add to that, is that you have to train people how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
So if you put yourself out to where you're responding to these emails right away every night at 9 o'clock, well, that's going to be, that's what we normally do. It's just expected. And if you're frustrated by that point, if you find that to be a really difficult point of friction within your partner relationship with your employer, because it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And if you find you're in an abusive partnership and you're not expressing that, and you just kind of you acquiesce into that over time, and it's really about you taking ownership and making sure that you change that and you set that culture right away, as you said, Brian.
100% agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're just about at the end of this episode. Maybe we could just, each of us provide like some takeaways for people. I mean, these don't need to be like closing takeaway points that are like set in stone, but just like some obvious things. And I'll go first. Is like that thing that I cited from Alyssa Nichol is make sure you diversify your passions. Get away from the screen. Don't make the screen your only thing. If you're coming home from work and you're jumping back on the computer to learn something, that's fine, here and there, but make sure that you also have something that's outside of that, whether that's you open a board game cafe, and I'm just talking a random scenario in my head, or you go out for a run, like do something else that doesn't involve the screen. Get away from that.
Yeah.
Nice. Am I next, Brian, or are you next?
Oh, up to you.
I'll let you carry us home, so I'll go next. For me, I think, to sum up my learnings in the almost 42 years I've been on this planet, is don't be so hard on yourself and don't take things so seriously. And I say that as a person that has to constantly be reminded of that. I think a lot of us in this industry are really passionate and really interested in what we do. And with that comes a kind of expectation for ourselves. And it's okay not to meet those. Do better next time.
Well said.
Yeah.
I get the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Mine is short and simple. Don't be taken advantage of. You matter. Always remember that.
Nice.
Yeah, dude, that's a great point, because it's really easy to get some kind of offer from some company and go, wow, that number looks really good. And then you just fall into that, like I was saying earlier, like you start answering emails at 9 o'clock one day, and then it turns into every night. and then you're like, oh shit, and you kind of acquiesce into that.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say thank you for our listeners for listening to this episode. Let us know if you like something like this. We could definitely have more episodes of this format. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I'd love to do some more focused subjects.
Yeah, it was awesome. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you please subscribe on our channel and leave us a review on the old iTunes. Thanks everybody. Take care. XOXO gossip.